book series, and we're on book 32. Let me bring the book into focus and we'll see what it is. So, book 32 was Fascism, a Warning by Madeline Albright. So this is going to be quite a departure from previous books so far in the 100 book series. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with what the book's about. Pretty obviously, this is a book about fascism and what it means for us in the world today. It starts kind of introducing you to the idea of fascism, and it tackles the reality that depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer of what a fascist is. Are they on the right end of the spectrum? Are they on the left end of the spectrum? And it presents a challenge for people trying to convey the seriousness of fascism. And the book speaks to the weakening of the term in modern political and social discourse, and how that is dangerous. So when you talk about fascism and you throw it up against other political systems, authoritarianism, totalitarianism, dictatorship, even communism, it gets lost, the waters get muddy, and people get confused around what fascism is and what a fascist leader looks like. Okay, so she dives into a hard look at fascism in a historical context. So Mussolini in Italy and Hitler in Germany in World War II. The two kind of stand out when we think about fascism. That's it. And it's really interesting to review how other world leaders viewed Hitler and Mussolini in their prime, what they said about them and the admiration they had for them, and the really interesting relationship between Hitler and Mussolini, because Hitler looked at Mussolini in Italy and he was like, this is what I want to do. And how their relationship kind of developed and evolved as Hitler took power in Germany and World War II erupted, and everything that happened after that. That was really interesting. And then she progresses to kind of the modern context of fascism. So she hits different countries in a kind of case study, sort of where we see fascist elements post-World War II, but not full-on fascism. So Bosnia, Serbia, Venezuela, Turkey, Poland, Hungary, the USSR, and then Russia, and then to fascism today in North Korea, which is the kind of standout, holdout, true fascist regime that exists today. And all of them are really interesting to read about. The author of this book, Madeline Albright, was the Secretary of State, the U.S. Secretary of State during the Clinton administration. It's just a unique perspective for her, both professionally and personally, which I'll touch on in a minute. So she had interactions with a lot of the people and the leaders in the countries that she covers, which really add another layer to understanding how these political systems work and how different political systems have elements of fascism and different political leaders have fascist tendencies, but none of them fulfill the whole idea or the whole definition of true fascism until we hit North Korea. So it was really interesting getting a kind of inside perspective of someone who was within the political system, interacting with these individuals, and how the West kind of has to negotiate or still interact with people whose tactics we would never view as acceptable. But world leaders still have to interact, and how do you deal with that, and when do we step in and when do we not step in, and all of this is such a complex thing to understand. And so to get an insider's perspective is quite fascinating and I think valuable. She then moves on talking about the challenges democracy faces today. So mainly talking about the assault on the media and the evolution of social media in the realm of information and disinformation, and how that has kind of thrown a wrench into the works of democracy. People used to get their news from standard sources that were generally considered, reliable, professional institutions that had journalistic ethics by which they abided. But now, in the era of the internet and social media, so many people are being bombarded with information that you can't verify the source. You can't necessarily identify the bias. You don't know if what you're being told is the truth, and you have no independent way to really verify the authenticity of what you're seeing. So it gets really complicated. It's a really good book, guys. It is so valuable, especially today, especially to the context of how politics has gone in the West in the last decade. I can't recommend this book enough. If politics is not your thing, it might seem like you have no reason to read this book, but I would still very strongly recommend that you do it. There's a lot of history in this book, and even if politics isn't your thing, the values of freedom and choice hopefully are, regardless of where your political views fall. This book is extremely valuable because it puts in context how easily and unsuspectingly we allow ourselves to be swayed into a direction we never saw coming. The real takeaway from this book is we are living in a kind of post-World War II political era. And when I say that, I mean we're more than 50 years out from World War II. The veterans who fought, there are very few of them left. And the generation that were children, that were teenagers and young adults who experienced the reality of World War II and the reality of fascism and what it looks like and where it leads and how it grabs hold, are very much few and far between. You know, we are living in a time where our political representatives don't have that experience anymore. They don't have those ties. And so the lessons that came post-World War II are slowly being pushed out of the political realm. You see division, you see exclusion, you see nationalism on an increased level. It's really a trend that makes this book necessary. I mentioned that Madeline Albright had a unique perspective for this topic, both professionally and personally. She and her family, originally from Czechoslovakia, her father was active in the political realm. They were actually forced to flee Czechoslovakia several times. And so on a personal level, her family was deeply affected by World War II. She has a vested interest in maintaining awareness and making sure that people don't forget how awful and horrific fascism is. When we just call someone a fascist because we disagree with them, we don't like them, it really weakens something that is so important to not degrade. You know, language is important, and when we misuse and overuse terms, we weaken them. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about for this book is bias. So I'm still going to recommend it in spite of this. But Madeline Albright makes no qualms about the fact that she is a proud U.S. citizen. She takes great pride in her work and her activism and her country and also her roots, her Czech roots. But there is a very clear U.S. positive bias in this book, and it's not so much aggressive positivity as kind of sidestepping necessarily the acknowledgement of the role that the U.S. has had in the geopolitical sphere. So I don't want to recommend this without the preface that there is a bias, but I do think that it holds incredible value. I cannot recommend it enough. I enjoyed it a lot. I think it wasn't difficult or cumbersome. I think there was a lot of evidence-based opinion, and it is really important. So that's it. Book 32, Fascism Warning by Madeline Albright. I recommend. I hope that I've given you enough information for you to decide if you really want to read this book. I hope you do. I hope you check it out. Let me preview book 33 for you. Okay. Book 33. Is going to be Crooked River by Preston and Child. It is the follow-up to the last book by them that I read, which was Verses for the Dead, which is coincidence, not planned. So watch out for that review coming. Okay guys, thanks for joining.